Our bedtime story for tonight. It's still on the Apostle Paul and his adventures in the service of the Lord Jesus Christ. And tonight we're going to look at Paul's adventure with Silas in Philippi. And that is what we're going to look at. So it's nice to see you all. And as you may know, the Apostle Paul was a great preacher. He took the good news of the Lord Jesus Christ and the coming kingdom everywhere he went. And he traveled miles and miles and miles in order to spread the good news, the gospel, to every part of the known world in those days. So, and today, the story we're looking at, he goes to this place called Philippi. And that is a beautiful little story. And what happens is that he is actually, at the moment, before he gets to Philippi, he is in a place called Troas. And in Troas, he's come to the coast there. And if you can see the map, if you know anything about maps, you can see Troas on the map there, maybe. And Troas is on the coast there, and he's come there from all the way across, which is now modern-day Turkey. And he traveled a long, long way, and now he's in Troas, and then he has a dream. And in that dream, he sees a man from another part, from a place called Macedonia. And they say, come over here and help us. And of course, that was God sending this dream to the Apostle Paul so that he would come and help the people in Philippi, which is in Macedonia. So from Troas, they set sail and go across the sea to the other side, and now he comes to this place called Philippi. What he usually does is that he goes to the synagogue because he wants to talk to the Jews first, and then the Gentiles. That's what he's always done. But in this case, he doesn't. He doesn't go to the synagogue, and we wonder whether maybe there wasn't a synagogue in Philippi, but he'd heard that there was a special place somewhere. There was a place where women were praying. And that's what he's now looking at. And that was by a river. Let's just have a look there. See the women. Can you see the women there? These women praying. And they were believers in God. They didn't have a synagogue, so we assume. So they find somewhere else quiet where they can pray to God. And amongst those was a wonderful lady called Lydia. She was a seller of purple. And that means clothes that were colored in a purple color, which was very expensive in those days. And she sold those clothes, and she was a believer. She believed in the God of the Jews. Now, when then Paul and Silas talked to these women and said, and probably some other people as well, and said, look, there is a bit more to this story, and explained all about Jesus. And Lydia then became a believer. And she said, come and stay with me. Come and stay with me. And it was a wonderful thing. She opened her house to the Apostle Paul and to Silas so they could stay at her house and enjoy the hospitality and friendship there. But there's always people who don't want to hear the gospel, don't like it, or for some reason are against it. And it was the same in Philippi. Certain people who didn't like Paul, didn't like Silas, so they accused them that they were doing the wrong thing, teaching things which they weren't allowed to do because they were Roman citizens. That's what they're claiming, at least, which wasn't really true. But they were setting them up. So what happened is that they were thrown in prison. Paul, Silas were thrown into prison. But what were they doing in prison? You know, they were put there in the stock where they had their hands, the wrists were fastened into this wooden structure so they couldn't move, and the feet as well. They would be very cramped. It would be very uncomfortable sitting. Can you see what they're doing? Are they very unhappy? Do they look unhappy? They're actually singing. They were singing hymns. Even though they were in this terrible situation, sitting in the prison, they were singing hymns to God. And that is amazing in itself, isn't it? You know, when things go wrong, when things happen that we don't like, We're going to sing a hymn to God. Are we going to sing praises to God and thank him for what he's done for us? That's an amazing example that we need to try and follow. So here's Paul and Silas, and they were singing hymns. And you know what happened? What happened next was interesting. At midnight, so we're singing hymns in the night. At midnight, the whole thing started to shake. There was an earthquake, and the whole thing started shaking, and the whole thing was falling apart. And lo and behold, the stocks fell off, the doors opened, and could have walked out. And you know, the whole prison, everywhere in the prison, all the doors opened in this earthquake. All the, if they had any chains, they were all broken somehow. You know what happened? There was a man, the jailer, and he was very afraid. He's looking everywhere. Oh no, all the doors are open. What am I going to do? All my prisoners will have escaped. So he was about to kill himself. Can you see his sword there? It's about that. And Paul, he could have said, you know what? This jailer is not a nice man. He threw us in prison. Well, I wouldn't touch him, and he wouldn't do anything bad to him. But if he wants to do it to himself, go ahead. But no, he wasn't like that. Paul wasn't like that at all. He said to him, do yourself no harm. We're all here. And so the jailer then doesn't kill himself. In fact, he goes to Paul and Silas, and he falls down on his knees and says, what must I do to be saved? Because he knew that Paul and Silas, he must have known, maybe he was listening to the hymns they were singing, maybe he'd heard them preach before. He knew that they had the answer to where is salvation? How can we be saved? So he's asking them, how can we possibly be saved? And so what do Paul and Silas do? Paul doesn't say, no, you throw us in prison. I'm not going to tell you about Jesus. Not at all. He's happy. Paul says, yeah, I'll tell you about Jesus. Jesus came to save sinners. I'm a sinner. You're a sinner. We can all be saved because of what Jesus did for us. So he actually has pity on this jailer. And what happened then, of course, is that even though, they had been beaten, possibly the jailer had beaten them as well. What happened next is that the jailer takes them home, and he cleans them up, cleans the stripes, and then he gives them a meal. And then the whole household hears about Jesus. And then the jailer, and probably his wife, they're all baptized. They were baptized, and then they became part of the little ecclesia in Philippi, together with Lydia and the faithful women. And now they're very happy. And that's a great story, how things started to turn out really badly, didn't it? They were thrown into prison for something that they hadn't done. And then there was this jailer who wasn't a nice man. Threw them in prison, maybe was in on the beating. And yet God turned it all around. And they were showing great faith in singing hymns rather than moping and being all miserable and feeling sad for themselves. There's some great lessons for us there. So let's think about those things when next time things go wrong, see whether we can thank God for them and put God first in our lives. All right, that's it for tonight.